who we've known for years and years and years. He's an author, relationship therapist, Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson.
Some expert advice on how we can all talk to them. Joining us now.
We bring in a friend who we've known for years and years and years. He's an author, relationship therapist, Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson.
Some expert advice on how we can all talk to them. Joining us now is relationship expert Dr. R.G. Alan Wilson. She's the author of Courageous Conversations Connect. Good morning, R.G.
Doctor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Janelle. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And as we mentioned, a lot of people just dealing with anxiety during all of this. What are your suggestions?
Some of the things that we need to remember is that this is temporary. This is temporary inconvenience for long-term gain. And as long as we stay healthy, Janelle, then everything else is recoverable.
Talk to your children about what's happening right now. What are the best ways to do that?
There's some do's and don'ts, right? So you want to tell them that you're going to be here. We're going to be okay. Kids want to know that they're secure and they're safe. So predictability, structure, and consistency. You also want to let them know you have a plan. And even if you don't have a plan, tell them that you're working on one. And good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the show. This is the Ask Dr. R.G. Courageous Conversations Connect space where we are having our morning quarantine talks. This is June 23rd, 2020. Do you believe it? Week 15 of quarantine. I think we've gone to yellow, possibly moving into green. I'm a little afraid about that, to be honest with you. And this is the 52nd episode of Quarantine Talk. So welcome and thank you for joining the show. Good morning, Carrie. Good morning, Charla. Good morning, Denise on IG. Listen, I'm asking everyone, just please do me a favor on IG or Facebook or YouTube. Just share this. Share this video, tag a friend, let some folks know that we're here and we're having our quarantine talks. This is our crew. And then if anybody wants to join our crew, you can go over to YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube page, Ask Dr. RG, AskDrArgie. Hit the notification bell, or in the Facebook, not this thread, but in your Facebook message section, you can type subscribe. You'll get a notification. You respond to that, hit reply, and then you'll get all of our notifications of everything that we're doing, all of our promotions as a part of our crew. Crew stands for Connecting Relationships for Epic Wins. Good morning, Stephanie Stewart. Thanks for joining the show. So we got a great conversation for you all today. So we're going to take a quick break from our sponsors. But as we come back, I want you to both think of who you're going to be breathing for and think about the topic today. All week, we're talking about racial trauma and healing, right? Those are our talks, racial trauma and healing. And we're going to talk about dealing with the virus of systemic racism from the streets to the suites. Who are the super spreaders? So stay with us. We'll be right back. Good morning. This is yours truly, Dr. Archie here for the Courageous Conversations Connect space where we're having our quarantine talk. So this is going to be a great conversation today, guys. So buckle up, because we need this safe space to process all that is going on. So welcome to our crew, Connecting Relationships for Epic Wins. Give us a thumbs up, smiley faces, hearts. That helps with the algorithms. We want to share this content, tag a friend, share this information with others who you believe would benefit from this. You're our crew, and we need, as Morgan always says, our evangelists to kind of let other people know that we're out there and we're having this conversation. Good morning, Dr. Gail Logan. It's good to see you. Thank you and welcome to the show. So as we think about who we're breathing, remember the topic all week is racial trauma and healing talks. That's what we're talking about all week, racial trauma and healing talks. And specifically today, we're talking about dealing with the virus of systemic racism from the streets to the suites, right? And that involves the collision between COVID-19, right, as well as the racial unrest that's happening with the protest. And we're specifically talking about the super spreaders. Now, tomorrow and Thursday, we're going to have two special guests. And so I'll unpack that for you in a bit in terms of our special guests, but we're really, really excited about that. So who are you breathing for? I will tell you that yesterday, and you all helped me tremendously, maybe even Morgan too, he'll probably come on in a bit, as relates to just our energy. I had some low energy yesterday, and I wasn't really sure what that was all about, but as I reflect on it, I feel like some of it had to do with the fact that I think I was just a little bit down. You know, with all that's going on, we're all experiencing not just post-traumatic stress disorder, but continual traumatic stress disorder. And you all know I do this clinical work every day. So when I shift from our quarantine talks, then I may do media before or after, and then about 12 o'clock, I go into seeing clients, and I'm pretty much rolling until 9 o'clock at night seeing clients. So that's important for you to know, because we have essential workers that are out there. My colleagues that are the mental health professionals, and we're helping people to deal with the stress and the trauma and the anxiety and the fear and the worry and all of those things that are pressing on us. We know the pressure burst pipes, and we need to express that. Otherwise, we're going to either explode or implode. So there are clinicians such as myself that are doing this work online pretty much all day. It can be draining, but it also is, as Morgan said yesterday, it's my heart's work, right? And sometimes your heart's work is not hard work if you're doing it from the heart. So I think that's why my energy was a little low, but it's better today. And I'm excited about the conversation that we're about to have. So we're talking about racial trauma and healing talks, the systemic racism, how to deal with that from the streets to the suites, and who are the super spreaders. Who are you breathing for today? I'm still breathing for the families of George Floyd, the family of Breonna Taylor, the family of Ahmaud Arbery, the families of Rayshard Brooks. And I'm breathing for all of those protesters, those young people that are out there protesting, the Black protesters, the white protesters, the protesters from all other nationalities and ethnic groups as well. It doesn't matter if you are protesting injustice, because MLK said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, right? He also said that protests are the language of the unheard, right? Or riots are the language of the unheard. So we're asking, do you hear us? Do you hear us? I see Jen on. Good morning, Jen. Good morning, Denise. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here and being a part of our crew. You know, today is the 33rd anniversary of being adopted by God. By God be the glory, truly blessed. Oh, wonderful, Jen. That is awesome. Congratulations on your adoption into the body of Christ. So she took the day off as a special day. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So guys, it's 10:09. So let's get into our posture. Put your middle finger on your thumb, right? Middle finger on your thumb, right? Sometimes I can't get, because it doesn't look even. It doesn't look even on the screen.
For some reason, it seems like Facebook is coming across a little cloudy and murky. You know what? Actually, you look better now. So maybe
okay.
Ask the audience
do you all see me clearly, or on Facebook, or is it blurry? Just hit us in the chat. Let us know. Morgan's kind of behind the scenes doing the production. Hands over your hand over your other hand, or hands on your side, back straight, feet pressed to the ground. Get in a comfortable position. Relax your shoulders. Most of us don't realize how tense we really are. We also don't realize that the majority of the day, we experience the day with a lot of shallow breathing. We're not breathing oxygen into our lungs. Charlotte said it's clear. We're not breathing oxygen into our lungs, deep breaths. We're not Breathing out carbon dioxide. Ayana's on. Good morning. She says clear. Great. Thank you, Ayana. Denise says clear. Awesome. So we don't do a lot of deep breathing, but we're going to do that today, and we're going to continue to do that throughout the day. So I ask people to get into your postures. We're going to take 5 deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Tell us who you're breathing for in the chat. We're going to hold it for 8 seconds in honor of George Floyd, who had a knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And then beyond, after he, had the breath need out of his body. But we're also breathing for those who are still suffering from COVID-19. As the country opens back up, there has become an uptick of people getting infected and affected by COVID-19. And we know it affects the respiratory system. So we need to be prayed up. We need to build up our lung capacity, build up our immune system, because quite frankly, the super spreaders are out there. Those persons that are asymptomatic that are going to be spreading this to their grandmothers and their grandfathers and their younger people that they're connected to. Be safe and be smart out there. So at the sound of my voice, Andrea's on. Thank you for joining, Andrea. I'm asking people to breathe in through the nose. I'm going to hold 8 seconds and then breathe out through the mouth. We're going to breathe in kindness and love and peace and serenity, and breathe out pain and worry and fear and anxiety. Okay? Ready? Breathe in at the sound of my voice. 1, 2, 3. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Last time, make it count, crew. Breathe in. And breathe out. Nice, that felt good. Whomever you are breathing for, breathe throughout the day in honor of those persons, whether it's Black and brown people who are being attacked left and right, whether it's the essential workers that are dealing with COVID-19 and there's an uptick. We think because of nice weather that this is over, but it's not. This little virus is deadly and it's attacking people at alarming rates. I think on the news, I heard there's over 120,000 deaths in the US. Over 2 million people tested positive. The Black Doctors Consortium is still out there testing in the streets, going to hot spots and places where they believe that Black and brown people might not otherwise be tested. So shout out to them. And what's interesting, there was a stat on Rachel Maddow where she said that, the United States population is 2% of the world's population, yet 20% of the persons who have been impacted by COVID-19, either diagnosed or have died, is in the United States. They say it's because of testing. We are testing more than many people, but it's not, the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. So what does that mean? Maybe that we're not socially distancing the way we need to. Maybe we're not following the instructions. Maybe we're upset because we've had to stay in for 3 months and now people are going out and not spreading, not abiding by the structures that they've set for us from the World Health Organization. Gail says, absolutely, Dr. RG, video therapy is demanding because we provide the same quality of commitment and compassion as we do in the office. Absolutely, Dr. Gail. So shout out to all of our mental health professionals that are actually doing this work. It's necessary, right? Our mental health, if we have our physical health, but we don't have our mental health or our relational health or our familial health, then things start falling apart very quickly. And it's very easy to project onto others, our anger, our frustration. Quite frankly, the person that we might take it out on is the person that's closest to us, our loved one, our children, our partners. And we need to really process that. So let's get into this conversation. We want to hear your stories around this concept of racial trauma and healing, right? And when we think about racial trauma and healing, one of the things that I feel that we don't talk enough about, there are D&I departments all over the place, like, diversity and inclusion, if you will. But we're talking about how do we deal with this virus of systemic racism, not just in the streets, but in the suites, right? And who are your super spreaders? So I want to paint this picture and I want to share a story, my story, as you think about sharing your story. So when we're talking about the streets and we're talking about the super spreaders of COVID-19, they're saying test, trace, track, and treat, right? Test, trace, track, and treat. The testing is to identify who has it and who doesn't. The tracing is to then begin to trace who that person has been in contact with to determine if other people actually have been transmitted, the disease has been transmitted or the virus to them, right? So the testing, the tracing, then you're tracking, you're going around and tracking where are the connections? How do you connect and track the dots to make sure that those people who that person has been in contact with are either healthy or they're not healthy? And how do you give them care that they need? And then lastly, they're working on a vaccine in order to treat, right? So those are the step-by-step processes for any kind of infectious disease. They've done it for Ebola, they did it for SARS, they did it for MERS, they did it for H1N1, they're now doing it for COVID-19, right? And there's many others as well, right? And this is what they did for influenza. If you all remember back in 1918, there was the Spanish flu. And in the Spanish flu, it was right after the war, and they wanted to put on a good face, right, for the United States. And so they had a big parade, and they had it in Philadelphia, and everybody got sick. Very similar in some ways to sometimes, when we think about what's going on with protesters, Lord forbid anyone gets sick. But the truth is, if you're not protecting yourself out there and you're not socially distancing, it's a very real possibility. So the treatment, well, let's juxtapose that. That's in the streets. What's happening with systemic racism in the streets and the suites? And you see the videos of what goes on all day, every day. And this has just been an uptick in this last month of June. I see more videos of police officers assaulting Black people, pulling them over for no reason, but also just everyday white citizens, actually white females. I've been seeing a lot of white females attacking Black people. I saw this woman last week. She had a little dog and she attacked this biracial couple, because they were taking pictures of their baby in the park. And she just had such venom. Then there was another lady she took her hammer and she started hammering the car of this woman who was a woman of color that lived next door to her, and started saying, "Go back where you came from," all this rhetoric. And then a Black woman kind of gave her the business. That was another neighbor. I wish I could show that video on here. We're going to be showing some of these videos that we're talking about when we have these conversations. But so the testing is essential in order to root out this virus that has taken over many of our bodies, the COVID-19. But what about for systemic racism? Is there a process by which we begin to test who's the super spreaders with racism? What about tracking and tracing? What about then treatment? What is the treatment for that? So here's this interesting concept, guys. Initially, when COVID-19 began in the United States, and they said, you don't need to wear masks, right? Thomas says deflections are abundant. Thank you, Tom. They said, you don't need to wear masks, right? And they said, leave the N95 mask for the essential workers. And they said that, we would be fine. And then a couple weeks later, they were like, oh, maybe we should wear masks. And then it was like, just stay 6 feet from somebody, socially distanced. Now it's 12 feet. Then it's 20 feet. Then they said, just don't cough and sneeze. Then they said, just don't talk and breathe. So basically, they didn't really know. And they kept saying over and over again these different messages. How about systemic racism? I heard the statement, and it never left me, that they said that they didn't want Americans to wear masks because they didn't want to make people think abroad that America was sick, the United States of America, this yet to be United States. They didn't want the message of the videos to be filming people walking around with masks like we saw in China and Italy and other places, because they didn't want the narrative to be that we were sick. And I thought that was a really interesting concept, because how about systemic racism? How about the structural inequities? How about the discrimination and the oppression and the degradation and the brutalization of Black and brown people for years, both in the streets and the suites? How about all of that? Do you not care that other people have the narrative that we're sick, right? Not only are we sick because we've been dealing with 401 years to be exact, since 1619 of systemic racism, but now Black and brown people, and yes, some of our white brothers and sisters, we're all sick and tired as well of it. So what about that? What about being embarrassed and ashamed and sickened by this message that is based in pure fact that America, the United States, yet to be United States of America, has been sick for 401 years and before, quite frankly, because the original looters, white people, took this land from the Native Americans. They're the only true ones that were here. That's why they call them Native Americans, and then brought us through the passage of the slave trade in the Middle Passage over here to work and build this country on our backs for free. That is America's secondary original sin. And that is the sick part of what the tapestry is in our history. So let's just go on and tell the truth, because if you cannot tell the truth, we always say truth, trust, and transparency, it leads to transformational breakthroughs. So what's your story? We all have a story. And as I said in a session yesterday, you know, we're two sides of the same coin, right? So Black people have a story of oppression, and white people have a story of being the oppressor. Our ancestors were oppressed. Your ancestors were the oppressors. That's this deal that we have, right? And if we don't work towards sharing the honest truth about it, truth, trust, and transparency leads to transformational breakthroughs. If we don't do that, then we can't be on this journey of healing. Denise says more interested in appearing okay than being okay. Drop the mic on that one, Denise. Stir the truth, right? You know, be disruptive. That's what the young people are out there doing. They're disrupting, right? And sometimes we need disruption in order to move the needle. You know, our passive stance has not really gotten us anywhere. You know, well, I shouldn't say that, because Martin Luther King and his nonviolent movement did move the needle, but it needed to be both. There needed to be Martin Luther King, and there needed to be Malcolm X, right? There needed to be a combination of voices at the table with regards to all approaches to move this needle. And now we still have to have various voices at the table. More?
Yeah. One of the things that I've been hearing about and well, known for a long time, but what really changed things for Martin, again, the passive, nonviolent approach, but what really changed things for Martin and what really made America see him as a serious threat, he started to connect the dots for economics.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the money. It's about the green. It's about Black and about white and about nothing. Understand why so many of these corporations are getting on board, because they want to make sure that they are on the right side of history, because it's impacting them in their pockets. They're seeing the sea change. They're seeing the movement, and the movement follows economics. So understand what this is all about. It's about money. That's just what it is, unfortunately. You know, you see all of, people not doing altruistic reasons. They're not doing all just for good corporate citizenship. Good corporate citizenship translates to dollars and future revenue generation. And they understand, and we need to also change the dynamic. As boomers, we are so conditioned to talk about let's say that Janet, having a brain freeze. What is it called?
The millennials?
Right.
Okay.
But what we forget about is really right now, to be honest with you gotta understand, it's not just the millennials, it's now Generation X, Gen Xers. That's really what's driving a lot of it. Now, those Gen Xers, they're in their late teens and they're in their early 20s.
Are those Gen Xers or Gen Zs?
Gen Z.
Gen Zs.
Gen Z. That's what I understand. That's who's out there fighting. Those teens, those 18s, they're Gen Zs and so forth. So, that's what it is. Thanks, Charles, for understanding. Yeah, that's really what it is.
Well, so the Gen Zs are basically saying, I don't understand why my parents made us think that everything was okay. And then we thought if we just studied hard and we got our good grades and we did with a few microaggressions, but everything was pretty cool, that we would be okay. And now they're saying, you know what? This is not fair, right? Well, this is not fair. And we have had enough. That's what I feel like. They're pressing the envelope in a different way. And we need them to stay on the map.
Their experience has been different. Remember now, they were born in a time where Barack Obama was president.
Right.
They saw us do it. So they're like, well, wait a minute, I don't understand. What's all this civil rights and all this other junk y'all pulling from the past, And they're saying, listen, we're not going for it.
But they're not. Yeah.
Education system needs to be overhauled. Financial, economics need to be overhauled. And they're feeling the impact because they're not seeing and experiencing life in terms of, what America's all about, they're not experiencing that, they're not able to take care of those loans issues, they're not struggling to find a job after they've spent years in education and have all this mounting debt. The American dream, that's a figment of their imagination. They're not really experiencing that. So you understand, they're pushing the envelope. They're not going to be denied. They're really doing and taking it to the level. And watch it, it's sustainability. It's the pressure. And sustained pressure changes things. So.
Agreed. 100%.
Watch those Gen Zs are on the move.
To that point, I want to see if they can hear this, babe. I heard this morning and I posted it.
The healing sister's name, Kimberly Jones. Video went viral.
Oh.
And it absolutely
listen to this, guys.
Captured my attention in a way probably that a video hasn't in a long time. You gave the world one of the best Black history lessons, along with an analogy of Monopoly that I had never heard before.
This is Steve Tree.
If I now decided that I wanted to play Monopoly with you, and for 400 rounds of playing Monopoly, I didn't allow you to have any money. I didn't allow you to have anything on the board. I didn't allow for you to have anything. You finally get a little bit and you're allowed to play. And every time that they don't like the way that you're playing, or that you're catching up, or that you're doing something to be self-sufficient, they burn your game. They burn your cards. They burn your Monopoly money. When they say, why do you burn down the community? Why do you burn down your own neighborhood? It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. So if I played 400 rounds of Monopoly with you and I had to play and give you every dime that I made, and then for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it like they did in Tulsa and like they did in Rosewood, how can you win? And they are lucky that what Black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
So I hope that you guys could hear that. We'll post it. I posted it earlier. We'll work on kind of putting that up on the screen so you can hear. But I just thought it was powerful because how many of you all remember Monopoly? How many of you all played Monopoly? I thought that was such a valid and powerful analogy of think about it. This is what our experience has been. as Black and brown people. Think about 401 years, or let's say 401 rounds of Monopoly. And every time you get a little bit, the person that you're playing Monopoly with is white, has unearned power and privilege. And they say, you know what? Nope, give me your money. Let me burn your property down and you go to jail. And then you get out of jail. You try it again. You play another round. They say, nope, give me your money. We're burning it down. You go to jail, right? And time after time after time, Black and brown people have experienced that the system isn't fair. The structural system was set up for us to fail, for us not to own anything, for us not to be educated, to be stripped of everything that was ours. Our names, our identity, our property, everything was stripped, right? And then we're expected to still be, and we've been kind. The woman said, Kimberly Jones, and you'll see it on my Facebook post, she said, you better be glad that we just want justice and not revenge. And I don't believe in revenge personally, but I do think that we have a right to this more perfect union for us to have justice. So think about that from the perspective. Ayana says, this was such a powerful video. It brought tears to my eyes when I heard it. It's powerful. Yes, 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 Treasure says, hearing her, I totally got it. It was a powerful message. Like, if, you know, I think we're experiencing a time, and the interview goes on. She says it was a perfect storm, quite frankly, for us to be all inside dealing with COVID-19 and then to be watching that brutal video of George Floyd and saying enough is enough. And Steve Harvey even said, he said, you know, this is the first time in his life, and I think he said he's 63 or something, that he's experienced white people also saying enough, which is good, because we need that, because we can't do this by ourselves. Jen, you have the, no, hold on a second, Mark. I'm sorry, I can't, it was all the way at the top, which you highlighted, so I can see it. Today is the New York presidential primary election. I voted like my life depends on it, because it does. I voted from top to bottom on my ballot. That's good. I didn't realize that until yesterday. Thank you, Jen, because our vote does matter. Megan says, I think there are just as many Blacks getting enlightened to this historical terror as people who happen to be white. They're getting fed up too, and realizing that something could actually be done. Agreed. Agreed. I do think that Black people always knew, right? We can't not know the brutality. We sometimes don't want to deal with it because the trauma is so entrenched and so intense that sometimes we just try to pivot to some type of relaxation and just say, oh, I don't want to deal with that. And that's problematic. But it's not like we don't walk around with the inherent fear that every time our loved one walks out the door, that they could just have a tail light like missing, like Sandra Bland, and end up dead. Or they could be walking down the street running like Ahmaud Arbery and end up dead. They could be bird watching, golfing, talking, breathing, sitting, drinking coffee, all while Black, and then be dead for no reason. Meanwhile, you will have oftentimes white people who will be disrespectful to the cops in many ways, and still they end up alive. I said yesterday, Dylan Ruth went in and killed 9 people in a church, acted as if he was a part of the group, and the church members accepted him in that Bible study. Sat through the whole Bible study knowing that he was going to kill them because he was trying to create a race war. And then went to Burger King. The police took him to Burger King. I got the story wrong. He got a meal, and then, they took him to jail. Come on now. That would never happen with us. And so when this woman, Kimberly Jones, talks about this monopoly, when she talks about the fact that, if you all remember, the rally that just happened on Saturday, Trump's rally, was in Tulsa. Strategic, right? Because you all know your history, that was where the Black Wall Street was, and the white people couldn't handle it, and they burned the entire town to the ground. Rosewood, the same thing, right? So when we get economic power, we sometimes don't know how to use it, and oftentimes it gets stripped from us. And she's talking about 401 years of us not owning what we have or what we want, we should have. And that creates a lot of stress, a lot of trauma, a lot of drama. It creates despair. It creates a system where people feel like they have no voice, nor do they have any hope. And when you don't have a voice and you don't have any hope, and we're always on the back of the bus and you're always not getting your needs met, then what do you think is going to happen? But this time is different. So listen, we're going to keep this conversation. I want to know what your story is when we come back, and where have you experienced the super spreaders that have continued to impact systemic racism in a way that continues to pass on these messages that Black people don't matter. Because guess what? We do matter. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you sometimes feeling out of sync and you don't know why? Do you ever feel like you just need to talk with someone about your circumstances? Dr. RG has provided professional therapy to thousands of individuals, families, and couples just like you. No longer do you have to believe there is nothing you can do. Having a therapist and coach to help you process what you feel is what you need. Dr. RG is known for working with marriages and couples to develop the skills to have courageous conversation and incredible transformation in their lives. Schedule an appointment today. Call 215-789-6999. Dr. RG is healing families one relationship at a time and transforming relationships one courageous conversation at a time. Schedule your appointment today.
Yep. And we are back. This is Dr. RG here at the Courageous Conversations Connect space, where we are having our quarantine talks. For you guys who are new to the show, we are here every day, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. We ask that you just give us some thumbs up, some smiley faces, some hearts. That helps with our algorithms. We also ask that you tag a friend and you share this video for others that may not be able to watch in real time. It really does help to share the word. Morgan and I decided maybe about 14 weeks ago, when we began this quarantine process, that we wanted to have what we consider to be our community give back. I am in the practice pretty much all day from 12-1. Morgan does all the sales and marketing and everything else behind the scenes to make sure, literally everything else behind the scenes, to make sure this engine. So trust and believe that we are a two-person show. Right. And we have some other additional help, behind the scenes, but pretty much it's Morgan and I. And so when you see me up and ready and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, it's not because my husband, my business partner, my prayer partner, the love of my life, the person who basically does everything else.
I don't do makeup and hair, though. No. I don't do makeup and hair. I don't do that. No. I ain't going that far.
He does not do makeup and hair. I don't know. I might get him to help me with the hair thing. Although I think I've been doing a pretty good job. I'm really proud of myself with my hair. I've been really working hard. So I will eventually be going back to my hairstylist. But while we're in quarantine, I got to do what I got to do. So I've been doing it myself. And
listen, just want to make sure, because you kind of sometimes forget, again, those on YouTube, I think, we got a few people over there. Please, it's important to hit that thumbs up on YouTube. Okay. Thumbs up on YouTube. I think I have one person to hit a thumbs up. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, please just put the little mouse over there and click that thumbs up. All right. Would appreciate that. And again, those who want to become crew members on Facebook, in the message box, not the chat, the message box, type in subscribe. And then after that, you'll get an email asking you to confirm. All right? That's it.
Hey, babe, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So as people are thinking about their stories, you know, when we're talking about the super spreaders, right? I feel like that's a valuable thing to be thinking about. In addition
Super spreaders.
in
Okay.
addition to the monopoly analogy, when you think about, you know, that everything is stripped from us, and that when we get a little bit, then, you know, oftentimes because of the insidiousness of white supremacy, which is a falsehood, it's a structural, you know, ideology that was not, is just based in man's narrative, if you will, or woman's narrative. Can you think of a time? I'm thinking of a time that I experienced with you where you had super spreaders all around you, not super spreaders of the COVID-19 virus, but that's very easily could happen nowadays with nobody socially distancing, but the super spreaders of racism, right? What's interesting for the two of us now is we have freedoms being entrepreneurs that we didn't have when we worked for these other corporate structures. And you worked for, you know, a good portion of your life in the corporate structures that were not always set up for you as a Black man to win. And the vision that I have, that I'm thinking of with regards to super spreaders, was a time where you shifted from, I believe, where you were working with Kaplan, and you started working out in Warminster. And that,
Actually, I can go further back. I can go back to when we kind of,
well, just some of your experience. That's the one I'm thinking of, where that you were around these super spreaders.
happened even before that.
Okay.
Before that.
That's just my experience with you.
Sure. So let's go back. For us boomers, we all know we were the generation that ushered in affirmative action, right? That was pervasive in the 80s, I believe, maybe even late 70s, but definitely in the 80s. My experience with that was I entered into the financial services, or actually was the insurance business, and doing affirmative action. You know, they were really pushing corporations to really, well, at that point, it wasn't D&I, it wasn't diversity and inclusion, it was called affirmative action. Right. So now I was recruited. I was transitioning from restaurant management work, and I was transitioning or trying to find a transition, if you will, and somebody referred me to John Hancock Financial Services, and so I was recruited by them. And in this environment, it was the office that was located at Neshaminy Interplex at the end of Roosevelt Boulevard. Those of you who are from Philadelphia, you know that's way out there past where it was a mental health institution called Byberry. Okay, if you were crazy, we're seeing the Byberry.
Don't use don't use that term.
Okay, I apologize.
You had a mental illness.
You had a mental health challenge. I'm sorry, guys. With this one, I got to make sure my terminology is correct here. But it's called Byberry. Okay, right past that in Trevose, Pennsylvania. It was a business complex called Neshaminy Interplex, and that's Neshaminy Interplex, and that's where John Hancock was. So, making a long story short, I was to be the first person of color or Black person to come into the office. So I remember the first day I went in for an interview. Okay, I met with the director of that office. Never forget the guy, great guy, and it was Mike Bispels. This guy brought me in, interviewed. Of course, I knocked the interview out. He liked it. He liked my personality, all those kind of things, and so he wanted to hire me. So what? Just
you have to give the clip notes.
He started asking guys to come in and check the temperature of these white managers who would be open to take on this Black guy. I would see this guy go in, the other end of the office, and come out. Go in and come out. The next thing I saw this young white guy come in, blonde hair, good-looking guy, come in, and then he didn't come out, and my door, my side opened up. Well, long story short, this guy, he and I are friends to this day. And what was, I guess, palatable, not palatable, was informative, was that he wasn't afraid of Black folks. Why? Because he had a sports experience. He played basketball for a number of years. So he was around Black men or Black people. And so he wasn't afraid, he was open to it. But I walked into an environment, in the room, a sea of white guys, and you could feel
super spreaders.
You could feel the tension. You could absolutely feel the tension. You see a small echo. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what that is. You want
me to mute? I'll mute myself.
There you go. I don't know. Can you guys still hear me? Hopefully you can still hear me. I don't know. Let us know. Kind of type in there. Okay. I told you. You guys know anytime. She's an environment bully. Okay. Good now? Okay, cool. Okay, all right. So anyway, the bottom line is this. I walked to an environment that was hostile. These guys did not want me there. It was an all-white office. You had about maybe 60 agents in that office, okay? And I could just feel the tension. But what happened was I had a white ally, which is the guy who embraced me and brought me on. And he took me under his wing. And you need white allies. You got to understand. He wasn't afraid, and he invited me in. And of course, they gave me the worst, area to cover and everything else. But the bottom line was that was my first experience of super spreaders and not really embracing me. And you could feel the tension. They would say certain things, and I heard the N-word, a few times. I had to confront them. I wasn't afraid to do it because at that point I was just, young and full of, black power, it was real for me. So, but I had a white ally in the office. And so I was sort of brought in and sort of protected, if you will. Okay. But that was my first time. Second time you mentioned in another situation and I was transitioning, no question. If you are the only or the first, okay, again, try not to be the last. Okay. But if you're the only or the first, you're going to experience it. And so, you have to make a choice in that environment. How are you going to represent not only yourself? Think about it, we have the weight of our culture and our people on our backs. It's unfair, no question about it. But this is just the truth. You have to go in with a set of attitude that I am the one that's in this environment, and I have to make sure that I not only get in the door, that I kick the door wide open, not crack it, wide open, and I represent well, and I have to do better, fly better, represent better, produce better. My results just have to be significantly better than my average white counterpart. You gotta understand, because he's gonna get or she's gonna get preferential treatment, and they'll get the good old boy or good old girl network kind of a thing, and the pass through. So those are my experiences. Of being around super spreaders, and it's no joke. It's no joke. And what I try to share about what they're feeling, if you were in power and you had white privilege all your life, it's all you knew, why would you give it up easily? Why would you? Think about it. If you were in control all your life, would you give it up easily? No, you wouldn't. You would fight. And that's what's happening. They're fighting for their existence because they never had to compete like this. Now the doors are opening, society is changing, and you have a shrinking number of jobs, one, and two, now you got more people competing for that job than ever before. Your white privilege is becoming less and less of a privilege. You feel like you're being backed into a corner. So things are changing. Understand it's going to get a little bit worse because when you back an animal in a corner, that's what they're feeling. Not that that's what we're trying to do, because we're not trying to take a revenge. We're just trying to basically level the playing field. But that for them is pressure, and it comes out as white fragility. And when you feel that pressure, you either do one or two things: you either fight or flight. And if they're perceiving it as a war against them and against their privilege, you're going to find those who are going to try to fight. But we have to stay the course, stay vigilant, and keep pushing through. And things will change. And we're going to keep moving, folks. We're going to keep moving. So we need our white allies. So one last thing, and I'll get off my soapbox. If you have white friends who are really trying to approach and broach the subject, something that T.D. Jakes said this morning, I was listening, and he said, don't, like when you said, you say sometimes too, babe, you say slack. Give our white brothers and sisters some slack. Meaning if they have the conversation, don't be so ready to pounce on them because they say it wrong or don't say it exactly right. They've never had to think in these terms. They never had to do this. It's working a muscle they never had to work out before. Just think about it. When you go to the gym and you've been out of the gym for a number of years, or you've never been in the gym, you're going to feel sore with the slightest amount of workout because these are muscles you're having to get acclimated to. It's a sea change. Give them the breath or the space to talk, have a conversation. Give them a safe space to have the courageous conversation with you and to kind of just share with you their thoughts and ideas. So that's it. And I'm done. I'm done.
I put myself, I'm unmuted myself. So, you know, I agree with Morgan on a lot of those notes. I would say that, you know, when we, as a family therapist, as a relationship therapist, as someone who spends a good portion of my day helping people, it's important that we understand that when we're in those environments, in the suites, if you will, like for Black people who have the narrative in their mind, like I worked hard, I've gotten good grades, I went to school, I've educated myself, now I'm in this space. And I do believe that there are times when we feel like, well, that should be enough. And then we find out that it's not enough for many white people and that they're still seeing us as a Black person, not an accomplished, educated, you know, competent person. Then that has implications for our mental health and well-being, and quite frankly, for our families and our relationships, because I can remember when Morgan would come home around, you know, I wasn't around during the first incident that he talks about, but during the second incident when he talks about when he wasn't getting the leads and when the white people in that new environment didn't like the fact that he was the only Black man there. And it impacted our relationship because he had, quite frankly, some depression about it. You know, like, how am I going to continue to move forward and elevate myself if they won't let me? And so it has implications for our families as well. And we have to really wrestle with that and process that. But we can turn pain, as I said in the very beginning, pain into power when we appreciate the process. And we do have to create these safe spaces for all of us, cut ourselves some slack. Simultaneously, when we're talking to our white brothers and sisters, we do have to have a safe space. But the thing about it is when that white fragility starts coming up and, you know, where white people are getting, you know, offensive about us saying what is our truth, then that's problematic. So, you know, we have to figure out how we have that courageous conversation. Megan says, I never had interest in being the first or only. I'd rather just go find my people or create my own or create my own. But I have friends who are the tall blazers and can handle that. Trailblazers, I'm sorry, and can handle that. Megan says, we all can play a vital role in the revolution. Absolutely. We all have to play a role, right? Never before. I mean, back in the civil rights movement, we would see white people. We know that, you know, slaves stole away. Harriet Tubman, my Shiro, came back 22 times and brought more slaves to freedom, but she did not do that without abolitionists. So we needed everyone at the table to move the needle to dismantle at that time racism, systemic racism. And now we're at the table again saying, well, we just want equality. We just want our fair share. What happened next? Oh, Denise is asking about, I think, your story. What story are you asking about, Denise, in terms of what happened next? If it's about our story with regards to the what Morgan experienced, he had to move on. He moved on. He didn't stay. I mean, I think you stayed there maybe less than a month or so.
I think I went past my probation days. Okay. I past that. So once I realized that there was not a playing field, and it wasn't like they wanted a playing field, and I wasn't given the opportunity. I wasn't getting, these words are important. So it's not that they're letting you, it's just that they're not giving you a level playing field, you know, and you know, that's really what it is. Just give me a fair level playing field, you know, where I know the rules, I know the landscape, and I'm giving a level playing field, we will exceed. We will succeed. That's what happens in sports. So think about sports. If you use this as a metaphor or analogy, in sports, they know the rules, level playing field, garner success. Because guess what? You see so many black athletes that will thrive in that because the rules are clear. You have referees exacting some type of measure of consequence if the rules are broken. And it's, Phil, there's follow through. You follow me? So given that, if you put that same analogy in a real work or corporate environment, or whatever case may be, guess what? We always will succeed. Cream rises to the top. That's why you have 75% of the athletes in football are African American. We know you got just about 90% in basketball. And if baseball was a more accessible sport, it would be like it was back when Jackie Robinson. You see another infiltration of black people rising there. So that was an analogy that I got to give credit to John Hope Bryant. If you don't know him, check him out. He had that analogy about sports and how sports demonstrates in an exact test case model of what rules followed, level playing field will breed success for us. So anyway, just wanted to share that with you. All right.
So Denise says Gail's story, Dr. Gail's story. So highlight that, babe. Yeah. All right. So Dr. Gail says, I was driven to fight institutional systemic racism in nursing school. I noticed 4 white students failed clinically, and suddenly 2 black students licensed LPNs, and an Asian and 1 black who repeated her senior year for the 3rd time received calls on Sunday night that they'd failed. The 4 white students were reinstated as passing their clinical. I had study groups, so I was informed about the events. I decided I must help those black and Asian students fight against the discrimination. Gail says, there is much to the story which will be told. My white classmates had silent candle light protests, newspaper articles as newspaper reports. This is an amazing structure, something. I can't read the last part of that. So basically, I understand that as Dr. Gail is saying that she fought, she spoke truth to power. She wouldn't stay silent, which is what we need. We need to elevate our voices for those of us to feel that we have some kind of platform or courage. Having those courageous conversations are necessary, right, to connect. And then she gained white allies who basically said, yeah, this is wrong. Right? Which is basically what needs to happen. What's happening now, after 401 years, we're tired of dealing with these super spreaders who are spewing hate and racism and demonic kinds of messaging about Black people being inferior to white people being superior. And we're just tired of it. And we need to continue to stay in the fight. The challenge with that is that for many Black people, we're tired, right? And it's hard to fight when you're tired, when you're fatigued, when you're battle fatigued. It's hard to fight when you feel a sense of sometimes despair when you've been fighting for so long and the needle hasn't moved but so far. But I think what's happening now is these young people who are out there protesting, they're saying, we're not stopping. We got the energy. We've been quarantined for 3 months and we don't have jobs. So we don't have to call our bosses and say, hey, I'm going out there to protest. Can I get the time off? So there's a level of freedom with that is allowing us to be galvanized and revitalized to not only have this repair that we all have to have in these courageous conversations, but also reformation and restoration and then transformation. Those are the things that we need to do in order to stay in this fight and move the needle to break down the structures and dismantle them that have been built up for hundreds of years to keep a race of people just down and back. As Al Sharpton said, with the knee on the neck where we cannot breathe. Megan said, I was at the store and noticed the company turn away a Black man with no face mask, but let the Arab family walk right in with no mask. I went back in and pointed out the difference in treatment. The Arab family was asked to leave. Yeah, those subtleties happen all day, every day in every corner of the world, but specifically in the United States. And we've got to keep calling it out.
Micro, mid, and macro.
Yeah, well, they say microaggressions. I feel like they're macroaggressions. All of them are macroaggressions. The fact that they say microaggressions to me is an insult, because some of these things, especially with, not especially, but in addition to what's happening in the suites, a lot of Black and brown people not getting their fair share, getting on performance improvement plans for no good reason, you know, having their white bosses who think they're superior micromanage them for no good reason. All of these are macroaggressions. And Carrie says, no more silence. Because I saw a sign that said, silence is violence. Resonated with that. Allow that to germinate and resonate with you, right? Silence is violence. And for those of us who have a platform, those persons who have a voice, with knowing that there are other people who can't. We, Morgan and I, are blessed to have a platform and a voice, and have right now no one to shut it down, no one to silence us. And we try to be respectful of all people, because all people do matter. But the truth is, we believe that if everybody on this planet believed that all people mattered, there really would never have to be a hashtag that said Black Lives Matter. There wouldn't, because everybody would have an equitable seat at the table on every single level, from our education to our police system or the criminal justice system to our voting system to our economic system. We all would have a seat at the table. That's just not what has happened in our history. And we just need to be honest and tell the truth so that we can all move forward together. Karen says 95% of jobs and assignments, I was the only woman on the team or the only Black person. When I started wearing my natural hair 4 years ago, I made sure I pulled my hair back in a low bun. I didn't want to walk into the building giving the clear people more of a reason to judge me without having the opportunity to prove that I can do the job. Even though I'm confident in my 20-year experience and abilities, it's sad that I still felt that way until about a year and a half ago. Not anymore. Good for you. Good for you, Karen. I certainly have felt that way before. I think one summer I had my hair in like cornrows or something. And then as soon as I got back from my vacation, I took the cornrows out, but I didn't have time to like get my hair done or go to the hairstylist. So I had a bush. And then I really vacillated. Do I go to the wig store and get a wig so that I can cover up my natural hair? And I opted not to. So I put like a little headband on, and I had my little fro, my little afro, sort of Angela Davis looking bush. And I thought it looked really cute, but I did have some concern about how it would be received in the structure that I was working in. Nobody really said anything to me at that time, but it was my internalized racism and the messaging that I had experienced over the years that caused me to pause to think, is this okay? Is this acceptable? No other race has to deal with the fact that people have said, white people, that our hair is not acceptable to be presented in a workplace for the way in which it grows out of our head. That's just not okay. Jen says, Staten Island community has not stopped. I've been going out there every weekend. All Black Lives Matter. I am extremely proud for painting the Black Lives Matter logo on Staten Island, a day to remember. I think that's awesome. Thank you, Jen. And I think we're gonna wrap it up there with our conversation, because we know we are grateful for all of you who join our crew for this Courageous Conversations Connect Space Quarantine Talks. Join me tonight. I will be on the Charlie Lewis show. Go to his Facebook page. I'm the resident therapist. I think he took a week off last week, but he's back. And we're going to be talking about being Black in corporate America and how do we all manage our mental health and well-being. His page. Okay. His page is Charlie Lewis page on Facebook. So go to his page. It'll be on at 8 o'clock. We'll be on live. And then tomorrow, we're going to have Alicia Taylor Bard, who is with lead communications officer, director for Mayor Kinney, and her daughter, who actually last week created a poem, and they posted it on Facebook, and I love the poem. And I thought, let's have a conversation about how do we talk to our young children about systemic racism and all that is going on in the world. So she's going to read her poem to us, and we're going to talk about your children. So if your children are home for the summer, have them join the conversation. I would love for you and your children to be a part of this conversation, to move this needle about how we talk to our kids about the two collisions between COVID-19 and systemic racism. And then on Thursday, we are going to have G. Lamar Stewart on, who was a police officer and is now an activist. And he also is a pastor of a wonderful church in the Philadelphia area. And he's going to be on talking about the dynamic between being Black and blue, right? And also fatherhood. And he's going to be talking about just spirituality and how we utilize our spirituality to fortify us. So we're going to have some great shows coming up. Join us, share, tag a friend, make sure that you come on board with our crew, connecting relationships for epic wins. Listen.
I want to remind them it's about inviting people to like the page. That's what
right. And so invite people to like the page. What did you want me? Come on and tell them more. Just come on and tell them, because I'm trying to move the time forward, but just tell them what you want to tell them. I don't know what he's trying to tell me.
Check a little too. I'm the producer. Let me produce. Hey, Denise James, you know about that. Producers try to produce a show. I
try to take the instruction.
I don't know who Denise is. Can you try to share who Denise is?
Denise is one of my good friends. We've we have gone back. We go way back, and she is one of those just staples in Philadelphia that has reported the news. She's an amazing journalist, and we want to have her. She should come on our show as well. I think we had Sherry Craig on a couple of weeks ago talking about the journalists and the trauma that they're experiencing in terms of reporting the news. But so thank you, Denise James, for joining the show. And sometimes I don't get whatever it is that Morgan wants me to say sometimes. And after an hour, I'm like, okay, just say whatever you want.
See, we have our stuff. We have our little stuff too.
Tell them what you want to tell them, babe.
No, it's all good. I said it. I think I said it already. It's. I put it out there. I think I put it out there. Just make sure that you guys like the page, all right, and invite. So it's like, invite your friends, tag, share, and thumbs up, and all this kind of stuff. It helps out. We're trying to just grow the channel, like I've said before. We're trying to grow the channel, and we need you guys to be our evangelists and to spread the word that we're here and we're having the courageous conversation that connects. That's it.
Thank you, babe. I love you. I love you.
All right. Anyway,
I do. You get on my nerves sometimes, but I love you too.
It's all good.
So, all right, guys, we love you too. There's nothing you can do about it. If no one told you today, we're telling you we love you. Have a beautiful day on purpose from what? Our heart to yours.